What's going on, everyone? This is Lior with Compass out of Boston, and in this video, we're going to talk about the pros and the cons of using an FHA loan for your first acquisition. So let's get at it. What's going on, everyone? This is Lior with Compass out of Boston, and in this video, we're going to be talking about some of the pros and the cons of using an FHA loan for your first purchase. Now, before we get into it, two quick things. Number one, if you guys haven't already subscribed to my channel, smash that subscribe button. I put out tons of new videos every single week talking all about what it's like to live in different parts of Boston, tips on buying, tips on selling, tips on investing, and so on. So if you haven't already subscribed to my channel, smash that subscribe button. And number two, if you guys are even thinking about doing anything with real estate anywhere around the greater Boston area, whether it's buying, selling, investing, whatever it is, I get so many calls from you guys watching my YouTube videos, and I absolutely love helping you guys, working with you guys. So if you have any questions, any thoughts, any concerns, whatever it is, hit me up on email, shoot me a text, send me an hit me up on phone number, whatever it is, and I will help you out. So let's get into today's content, which is the pros and the cons of using an FHA loan for your first purchase. And we're going to start with the pro number one. And pro number one is pretty straightforward. And using an FHA loan allows you to buy anything from a condo to a 4-unit using as little as 3.5% to 5% down. Now, that's literally one of the lowest loan down payment products out there in the marketplace. There are very few other products that can even match that or go below. The only one that's typically used around the greater Boston area is the VA loan. So for veterans, they have access to 0% financing. But besides that, there's really nothing that can get you as low as 3.5% down. So if you think about properties in Boston and around the greater Boston area, they are super expensive, right? So you can get into $500,000, $600,000 property with as little as like $17,000, $20,000, which is absolutely incredible. So for those that don't necessarily have a ton of cash saved, but still want to buy a house, want to buy 2-family, 3-family, whatever it is, this is an amazing way to be able to break into real estate, to own a home without needing a ton of cash. Pro number two of using an FHA loan, I already kind of alluded to it, but not only can you buy a condo or single family, but you can also buy a 2, a 3, or a 4 family as well, which is absolutely mind-boggling with the same low down payment, right? So you can buy up to a 4 family. So you can literally buy a 4 family in Boston, which in some areas can easily be 900 to $1 million plus. And you can use this 3.5% down, right? So you can get into these very, quite large buildings. 4 units are pretty big buildings with as little, if you're going to buy it for $1 million, which we have someone doing that right now, you can get into that with as little as $35,000 down on $1 million bill, on $1 million 4 family. So, if you do the numbers correctly, whether it's a 2, 3, or 4 family, you can figure out ways where you can almost live for free, right? Where the rents from the other units are covering your mortgage, and maybe even generating some additional leftover cash flow while you actually live in the unit. So it is, I personally think it's absolutely insane that we can get 3.5% down and go buy a 2 or 3 or 4 family, assets that would typically require us to put 25% down. It is amazing. And finally, pro number 3, this is not going to be relevant to everyone, but if you are going to be looking at homes that need work, FHA does have like a sub program. It's called a 203K loan. And basically it's a loan option where you can pull an additional construction loan and be able to use that money to rehab your home, right? So let's say you find like a single family or maybe even a 2 or 3 family that needs, say, $50,000 or $100,000 of work. This 203K loan will not only provide you with the financing to buy the actual home, but then it'll also give you an additional construction budget of whatever, right? $25, $50, $75,000 that you can tap into and actually use to renovate the house, which again, for a lot of homes around the Boston area that are old, right, typically need some sort of updating, some sort of work. So it's an amazing, amazing product if you're going to be looking to potentially doing renovations and construction. Now, let's talk about some of the cons, and starting with the biggest one, which a lot of people don't realize, is con number one is being an FHA buyer makes you very uncompetitive in a very competitive Boston real estate market. And here's what I mean by that. Let's say you're going to be putting an offer in on a place, right? Whether it's a single family or two family, whatever it is. And let's say there are other bids coming in, right? And FHA is typically considered, as a listing agent, would be considered very, very uncompetitive. And there's a number of reasons for it. Number one, the loan down payment is very low, right? As a listing agent, listing agents typically look for buyers who have very strong liquidity, which typically increases their confidence in the buyer's ability to perform. So just the fact that you have access to this low down payment program, it's kind of weird, but it actually almost works a little bit against your favor when you're competing against buyers that might be putting down 10%, 15%, 20 or 25, right? If I was a listing agent and I'm comparing a 3.5 or 5% down loan versus a 20 or 25% down loan, I'm going to have way more confidence in that 20 to 25% down buyer, assuming everything else is the same, than the 3.5 or 5% buyer. Now, it's not only the loan down payment, but with FHA, it also is a logistically harder loan to pass through because there are a number of conditions that need to be met. So condition number one that typically needs to be met for FHA is the property needs to be in a certain condition, like actual physical condition, in order to pass the appraisal, right? So one of the big things you may know about FHA is from a condition perspective, you can't have any chipping paint. You might have read that online or someone told you that. That's a big issue in a lot of greater Boston properties, right? Because a lot of them, again, are older and they'll typically have some sort of chippiness, whether it's inside, on the exterior, on the porches. That is, again, a pain for the seller, a pain for you to get the loan through. And the other condition that typically needs to be met if you're buying a 3 or 4 family, you will need to pass a self-sufficiency test, which basically means the rents of the building need to be able to cover the full amount of the mortgage, the taxes, the insurance, and the PMI. So my point here is there's a number of hurdles that need to be passed in addition to that. So when you're, the takeaway for you guys is when you're an FHA buyer, if you're going to be going into competitive situations, you need to be prepared to be able to be very aggressive, usually on the pricing front, right? Because your terms, right? You always have pricing and terms on a real estate transaction. Your terms are going to be much less competitive than other conventional buyers. So you're typically going to, in order to get some of these deals, you're typically going to have to be pretty aggressive on the pricing side in order to have a chance to stand out for the seller to deal with, all the stuff of FHA. Now, con number 2 of the FHA loan is if your plan is to buy your first FHA home, right? Let's say you're going to buy a single family or a 2 family, whatever it is, and then you're going to want to do that again, maybe in a year or 2, you need to know that you can only have one FHA loan out at a time, right? And in order to in order to do that, in order to be able to buy your next one, you're going to have to refinance out of your existing FHA loan, right? So let's say I buy a single family home today with an FHA loan where I put 5% down. And next year, I'm thinking I'm going to move and buy a 2 family to live in, right? I won't be able to do that unless I refinance out of my first FHA loan. But here's the issue. Because I'm at 95%, right? I got a 95% loan. Most refinance lenders will only refinance 75 to 80% on owner-occupant loans. So what that means is you're actually going to have to create a good amount of spread on the house, right? In order to be able to refinance out. And that can only happen in 2 ways. The market can continue to go up, up, up. Your home value increases and eventually you can refinance at 75 to 80%. Or if the market doesn't do it for you, you're going to have to do that, which means you're either going to have to renovate the house and increase its value that way, maybe add some sort of square footage, maybe you add square footage in the basement, maybe in the attic. But you're basically going to either have to let the market create additional value for you or yourself create additional value in the property in order to be able to refinance out of your original FHA loan and go do it all again. And finally, con number 3 is on the 203K side that we talked about on the pro side, right? So that's the construction loan where you can buy a house and then the lender will also give you a 203K loan. There are quite a bit of cons to that strategy as well. Even though it's a great product, it is logistically a very, very hard and very tough to deal with. First of all, for 203K loans, you cannot use any regular contractor to do the work. You actually have to get specific licensed 203K contractors that are they're the only ones that are actually allowed to do the construction for you when you use this kind of loan. So you can't just hit up any regular plumber, electrician, carpenter, whatever, right? They've got to come off a designated list, which significantly reduces the amount of choices you have on the contractor side. The other thing is, I've heard this personally from my clients that have done it before. Logistically, in terms of pulling the construction loan, it is it can be a very difficult and just logistically tough process. Typically on a regular construction loan, you can typically call the bank, tell them you did the work, and have them come out and inspect the work and then release the money back to you. That process can typically take, say, a week or two. I've heard stories from clients where it has taken them literally 3 or 4 weeks just to get an inspector out from the bank to inspect the property, which basically means it's very hard to access those construction funds. It's not necessarily a super smooth program. So I know I went into a lot of detail about this. If you guys have any questions, any comments, any thoughts, whatever it is, put them below and I will definitely answer them, because I know this can be kind of a complicated topic, especially when we're dealing about the refinance stuff, as well as the construction loans and how those work and how they differ and why they're worse. So if you guys have any questions, shoot them below. And like I said, guys, I get so many calls from you guys watching my videos, ask me all about buying, selling, investing. So if you have any questions, hit me up and I will help you out.